tech support.
Okay, doing a good job.
Do you guys want to just come forward anyway?
Can you speak up a bit?
Nah, just may as well just come up.
No, come on, really.
Yeah, just come and sit here.
It's not
Maybe
very,
just-
I used to do presentations, you know. People will do it.
Okay. Yeah, something like that. Thanks, Phil. Alright guys, so
Tell you about the name,
yeah, Jcal, welcome to the session. Just to give everyone a sort of background debate about Jcal and myself, I think it's probably worthwhile talking about why we're doing this. Essentially, I didn't grow up in London. I grew up in Birmingham, in the Midlands, and straight after university, I was looking to get involved with the Jewish community and tried to do certain things in the Midlands. Was doing sort of young adult things in the Midlands, but there just wasn't the number of people. So there was only a handful. So I guess with a lot of people, the sort of momentum and draw to London meant that I moved down to London. And then when I moved to London, I found that I wasn't really aware of what was going on. So I had to be introduced to certain groups. On Facebook, I found certain organisations, and there were some things that were very transparent and open and out there, whereas other things I needed to be sort of introduced to by people, by word of mouth. And interestingly, the Jcal idea is myself and a friend that are starting this, and we've got a small team of people helping as well, which is fantastic. And in the research phase for Jcal, we were talking about different groups that we were learning about. And actually, the co-founder, Johnny, we found out about a group very recently. He grew up in London, and he hadn't heard of this group. So it shows you that he'd been around the Jewish community and been involved in young adult events for 5-10 years, and he still hadn't heard of a very well-established organisation that we just started to both visit. So we felt there was a real need for an organisation, a digital organisation, to come onto the scene to help both small and large Jewish organisations to facilitate them to list events for the community, and that's really how Jcal emerged. In terms of where we're at the moment, Limmud is the pre-launch phase where we're gauging interest in it, and we're trying to boost the awareness of it, getting some feedback. I'm going to go into beta testing in January with 100 users, or around 100 users, until we launch formally in probably 4 to 6 weeks after that. So I'm going to jump straight into the presentation. Actually, before we jump into the presentation, I think it might be useful to get a show of hands, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask anyone to speak, but a show of hands if in terms of your digital experience, if you're aware of everything that's going on in the Jewish community, if you feel like you're aware of anything that's going on. So out of a handful of people, I don't think anyone in the room, that's interesting. So no one in the room feels that they know what's, everything that's going on. Do we feel like we know half of what's going on? Does anyone feel? One person? Okay, that's good. So we've got about 5-10% feel that they know half of what's going on. In terms of the communications and marketing, one of the things that we felt in the research phase was that when we started to track what organisations were doing, we felt that an almost sense of overwhelming with the amount of communications happening. So on Facebook, put up your hand if you find out about events via Facebook. Okay, so that's a large proportion of people find out about events through Facebook. That's interesting. And out of the people that find out about events through Facebook, do you get a lot of notifications? Do you have a sort of constant stream of notifications, or is it just one group or many groups? So you're getting lots of notifications and messages, and so it's an interesting sort of thing here in terms of, and that's really what's been reflected in our research. So you've got people that don't know much about what's happening, and they get close to nothing. Or people that have chosen to not be on Facebook, so there's some people in the audience that have chosen not to be on Facebook, and they're probably falling into this category. They're not sure about what's going on. Or some generations which don't use Facebook as well. And then you've got people who do join some groups on Facebook, and then they get completely overwhelmed. That's exactly what we did. We joined a couple of groups, and now we're getting bombarded on Facebook. It's also now starting to happen on WhatsApp. It happens on email as well. I don't know if anyone in the room gets lots of emails from organisations, both local synagogues as well as the parent organisations, as well as independent organisations as well. And I feel there's a lot of email being sent out. And organisations are really trying hard to send out lots of emails and tweak the open rates and all that sort of stuff. But from a user point of view, I think we can speak for a lot of people here that there's a bit of overwhelm and tiredness about email in general. So that's the background. I'm going to tell you how we at Jcal want to solve that issue. So it's going to be a one-stop shop for connecting the Jewish community. Starting as a calendar, it will be all events in one place. It will allow users to choose events easily. Users will be able to buy tickets directly, connect to all calendars, it's cross-communal, and you can forget about the email overload, and you can change that for Facebook overload if you like, or WhatsApp overload. And I'm going to dive in a little bit to say how this is going to work. So in terms of choosing events, users will have filters. They'll be able to filter based on lots of different things, from as top level as denomination, to as granular as dietary needs. So for example, there might be kosher events or events that offer gluten-free options, etc. There's been some organisations that want to have female-only events or male-only events. You can filter based on age preferences. You can filter based on dating preferences or things like that. So there's going to be lots of different filters. And the other thing it's going to help with is there'll be geographic filtering as well. So there'll be a map, and it will show you the most appropriate events for you in your local facility. So basically it's going to allow people to stay connected to the whole of the community. It will be for any age, so it's not just for young adults, it's also an interesting demographic which is showing an interest is the empty nesters, people that have kids who have left home, most likely over 50s, also young families as well sometimes struggle and can sometimes feel disconnected. The teen and student market as well, market's not the right word, but the sort of 16 to 22-year-olds, whether they are or aren't involved in JSOC or JSOCs and UGS, they can sometimes feel like they might want to get connected with the wider Jewish world, and certainly post-universe as well. So what we're looking to do with this platform is list more events than anybody else. We've also, at the moment, we've seen a lot of interest from a lot of different organisations, from the very small to the largest organisations in the country. And some of those organisations have expressed an interest globally as well. So the plan was to launch just in London to begin with, but in the initial conversations with these organisations, they really want it to be national at least. So it'll probably be London and very very quickly the other major cities in the UK. And we want it to be, we're designing it to be easy to use. And fast as well. So the process of booking events, I don't know if anyone else has had this problem that we've had, where if it's the Facebook route, it's lots of different groups, and then there's posts, and you have to click out to different websites, and then you have to click out to the booking systems, which may or may not be on the same website. And sometimes if you're busy, you don't book on the same day, and what happens is you may or may not remember to book a ticket, and you go back to Facebook, and guess what, the event's sold out. There's a lot of issues around the journey being very disconnected. So Jcal is going to sync up everything, and it's going to allow users to buy directly. So it should make it easy and fast. From an event organisation point of view, for those that are organising events and trying to drive users to events, it should drive more event attendees. If you're attending events, you'll see a wider spread of people because the website will facilitate cross-germination of different demographics, denominations, etc. There'll be different people going to different events. It will drive membership for organisations, and it allows, as I said, a wider uptake. And potentially people to reconnect with the community, because when I moved to London, I found it very difficult to find out what was going on. It probably took me about a year. And really, the thing that facilitated finding out about events was not the synagogue route or anything like that. It was me finding friends who would then recommend specific events. But it took a very long time. It took maybe, 12 to 18 months for me to feel connected, even somewhat to what was going on in London. So we really want Jcal to be the platform where you just log on and you just filter, and whatever city you move to in the world, you can just find out what's going on. So it'll be easy to upload as well for organisations. You can do it via CSV. We're looking at a feed link which will go from current calendars, from the websites they currently have, straight into Jcal. As I mentioned, it's geographical. You can tag events with relevant filters, as we talked about. You get found by more people, and it's also free. So it's free for users and free for organisations. We think it's going to be fantastic for people. It's going to eliminate all those issues. It's going to be free, fast, easy to use, mobile friendly, and you will not have the issues. You won't be missing out. So I found that frustrating as well. Once you found out about events, there's that missing out thing. Also, just helping with Jewish continuity, increasing net Jewish interactions, hopefully increasing Jewish relationships and marriages, helping instill better social and religious values, helping decrease loneliness and social isolation amongst at-risk people. I think this is really important across across demographics. For new to London or new to capital cities, for people potentially that have been recently divorced or widowed, or for people that have left university that have lost social groups and feel slightly socially isolated. We think this would be a fantastic platform for those people as well. So the mission, as I mentioned, really is to list all major and minor events. It's not about just big organisations or just about small, it's about everybody. Helping to ensure that everybody has a fantastic experience. That's why we're launching stages. We're not going for a big bang launch, we're launching with beta and then rolling out. We're going to be continuing to innovate quarterly. So it's not it's not sort of we build it and then nothing happens. We're going to be rolling out different innovations fairly frequently, and then providing good success metrics in terms of friends made and relationships created, and improving the number of attendance at events, etc. So that's the end of the presentation. Welcome any questions really from anybody.
So are you getting the funds through advertising, or where does the money come from?
Sure. Yeah, so the question's on funding. Essentially, at the moment, the key focus really is going back to the mission is on users and the user experience. So in terms of funding, we're not looking at monetizing it soon. We think that there might be a variety of sort of funding routes or revenue channels, but we don't want to put any pressure or we don't want to put any pressure on any particular stakeholder. So we see users as a stakeholder, we see the event organisations as a stakeholder, and even advertisers as a potential stakeholder. We don't want to give any organisation or any individual or any company undue power, or power's probably not the right word, but sway on the platform. The platform, a bit like Limmud really, the platform should be the most interesting and relevant thing, and we want to ensure that if we're getting revenue from advertisers, that it doesn't distort or confuse the user experience, and we're talking about that quite seriously within the team, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. I know that Facebook didn't include, and I'm not comparing Jcal to Facebook, but just as a software company, they didn't include advertising for many years, I think 4 or 5 years. So we're looking at different models essentially. It's more of a community organisation, and whenever we finalise sort of revenue plans, we don't want to put any undue pressure on it from any of the stakeholders.
How are you going to check the people who would like to join, genuine or maybe not genuine?
Sure. So the question's on authenticity of users, fake users, potentially dangerous users. So I have heard questions about that. And in terms of user joining, we're going to have a process whereby if we feel that so I think we need to break it down into the stages. The first stage of the beta launch is in a closed environment. At the moment, it's in Limmud and it's targeting very, very small numbers of people. When we go to when we launch the platform more fully, we'll have a process whereby users will have to, on a one-to-one basis, will sign up, and they won't be given access until we feel that they have good intentions, as it were. We think this is a really minor risk, so probably much less than 1%. We don't think there's going to be many fake users, and one thing, it's not going to be exclusively for Jews. There will be non-Jewish people, for example, in the interfaith world. There will be people that want to attend Jewish events, that want to know more about connecting with the Jewish community. Again, I don't think it's going to be the majority of users. I think it'll be a very small minority, probably less than 1%, again. But either way, there'll be a validation process whereby an admin member of the team will be looking through the application process, and it will be common triggers. So the common triggers which currently trigger CST type analysis is membership to groups, friendship groups, and etc. etc. And yeah, but essentially that's basically it's a sort of validation process. But we don't think it's going to be a major problem. Is there any sort of thoughts?
What are you going to do? Are people going to be giving feedback to your stuff as well?
Yeah, so in terms of the feedback loop, the question is on giving feedback. So it's going to be really important. Like the platform is for users, so it's really really important that we listen to feedback. So the next sort of 3 months is going to be really important for that, and that's really why we're going to be doing rollouts. So if you're interested, or if anyone in the audience is interested in joining for the beta testing, that's the phase where there's going to be the most amount of feedback. But I expect that we'll be listening to feedback for a long time. But I think we're hoping to sort of nail down all of the core features within that beta phase rollout, and then in terms of the new large features, will have to be thought about in terms of the product roadmap and in terms of resources that we have. We don't have a huge amount of, especially on the development and technical side, there's a bit of constraint there, especially with not having revenue. So we have to do it in a staged manner. But we're open, and it's probably not going to stay just a calendar. The calendar is the primary thing at the moment, but we see lots of opportunity with this. We think that syncing up the Jewish world is interesting. I think there's lots of opportunity. A lot of the community is very denominational based and demography based as well. So there's opportunities with all sorts of things. That I don't potentially need to mention right now, but there's loads of things we're looking into. It's really exciting.
So, if I imagine, it depends how wide you go with events, but there may be lots more niche events in the community than generally exciting events.
Yeah.
And you can think of lots of niches.
Well, what do you mean by niche?
So, events that are designed, that are particular, for people interested in a certain type of music or a certain size or a certain Jewish learning style or whatever.
Yeah.
And the bigger, the sort of, lots of people will So if I've never logged in before and I log in for the first time,
Yeah.
and most of what I see is, there's a slight risk that I'll be overwhelmed with these things that I know I'm not interested in.
So the question's on on first login, users seeing too many events. It's really interesting that you mentioned that. That's something we've been grappling with for the last week or two, since speaking with organisations and finding that organisations are extremely interested in working with us. We see that, and one of the solutions we've thought of is around very busy periods. So Shabbat, for example, in London, there'll be many different events on Friday nights, as well as festivals, loads of things going on around Hanukkah and Purim, etc. But also, I take your point about niche, and I think probably what will happen, we're looking at the UX, and we're looking at the user experience, as well as the technical side of things, and we're looking at potentially users having to pre-select filters, and then the calendar, it won't just be a calendar, there'll probably be a map view as well. So that would be one way of controlling how much is displayed. So that will go some way into doing that. But it's an interesting one. That's one of the things that will come out of beta, really, depending on how many events, etc. The other thing that we're doing to mitigate against that is we're not having classes. So we're only having events that are one-off events. The only deviation from that is if something is a series, let's say 4 talks, but it's not happening again, that would sort of still fit within the Jcal approved events. But if someone's having Hebrew classes and there's 5 different levels and they're ad infinitum every year, they're not going to be on Jcal because it would play. At the moment, we may have a class solution further down the line, but to begin with, it would be one-off events or one-off series of events. So that will reduce things. It's the same with services as well. So we wouldn't have typical services, but we'll probably have spiritual or musical or different services, and potentially independent minyanim, things like that. But if it's something that someone can easily find out, which is happening all the time, has been happening for 10 years, it's carrying on for the next 10 years, and isn't in itself different in any way, then it probably wouldn't hit the sort of requirements or interest level for the users from what we see. So I mean, things that fall outside of that, I mean, the things that might be interesting is so things like musical services, which are maybe once a month, or maybe a service with a study element, which is a one-off thing about a particular time of year. Obviously the calendar aspect is interesting as well, so that might be listed. But it's a really interesting point, and it is something that we're going to have to look at. The map solution is probably one way of doing it. We may also go down to day as well, so we'll have month, week, and day. Potentially looking at a sort of sorting way of doing it, and different types of displays as well. So we probably wouldn't have all events being equal. We may have. I should sort of clarify that one. It wouldn't be a sort of list user experience. It wouldn't be a sort of list display. It might be photos or a feed or some other types of displays when we have that information overall, that mass of different types of events. But I think filtering and those are the major display types like maps and the photo feed would probably cater to most of those things. But because we're not aware of the size of the market at the moment, of the uptake of the events, event organisations and